Why can a successful life still feel like the wrong life? You followed the sensible steps. You became useful. You accepted the next responsibility, then the next. Other people point to your life as evidence that you are doing well. But in the quiet moments, achievement can feel strangely impersonal, as if someone else chose the destination and you became excellent at driving there. On Wednesday, Adrian offered Maya the title she had wanted for years. She felt almost nothing. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Wise Mind Stories. In this episode, you will learn how a rigid identity cuts us off from needed capacities, why projection makes us search in other people for abandoned parts of ourselves, and how to recognize the thread of purpose that existed before status began choosing for us. The title was Senior Vice President of Global Product. Maya would lead the 6-country expansion. Her compensation would increase. She would report only to Adrian. The role would place her above Lena in the formal structure. A week earlier, that last fact would have created a complicated satisfaction. Now Maya looked at the map on Adrian's screen and imagined airports, regulatory meetings, integration plans, and the expression on June's face when another date became movable. You earned this, Adrian said. Maya asked for 48 hours. Adrian looked surprised. This is what you wanted. I thought it was. At home, Daniel listened while she described the role. Do you want it? He asked. Maya listed the strategic risks. That was not my question. Wanting it is not the only relevant variable. No. But you are very good at using relevant variables to avoid an answer. Maya felt accused. Daniel felt dismissed. The conversation followed its familiar path until he said, You treat tenderness like something I am supposed to provide, so you can keep being hard everywhere else. The sentence opened a chapter Maya had avoided. In The Law of Gender Rigidity, Robert Greene uses a Jung-influenced framework of masculine and feminine qualities. The language can sound overly binary to a modern audience if treated as fixed biology. Greene's deeper claim is about psychological range. Every person contains capacities. Their culture, family, or chosen identity may encourage them to suppress analytical separation and relational synthesis, forward action and reflective withdrawal, assertion and receptivity, independence and care. The problem is not possessing one style. It is over-identifying with a role until the opposite capacity feels like weakness or belongs only to someone else. A strength becomes a prison when you are no longer allowed to leave it. Maya had built her life around forward motion, analysis, control, and endurance. These qualities were real strengths, but she had outsourced softness to Daniel, intuition to Lena, and dependence to everyone she considered less disciplined. Then she felt drawn to people who carried what she had rejected. Daniel's emotional presence had once made her feel safe. Over time, she began treating it as a service he owed. Lena's ability to see relationships among research, power, and trust impressed Maya. It also irritated her because it complicated linear plans. Greene describes projection through the concepts of anima and animus. We may idealize or demonize in others qualities undeveloped in ourselves. We fall in love with a person who seems to carry our missing aliveness, strength, gentleness, danger, or stability. When the actual human being fails to remain a perfect container for the projection, disappointment turns personal. The solution is not to become less ourselves. It is to reclaim range. For the person who always attacks a problem, practice withdrawal and contemplation. For the person who always avoids conflict, develop assertive action. For the leader who specializes in parts, learn to perceive relationships and wholes. For the caretaker who disappears into harmony, practice separation, and clear judgment. Maya asked Daniel, "What do you think I make you carry?" "Everything that cannot be solved," he said. Meaning? Sadness, waiting, being unsure, June's fear, your father's loneliness. You arrive with plans. I stay with what the plan cannot remove. Maya looked away. Her competence had not only protected the family, it had determined which forms of labor counted as real. The emotional cost was visible in Daniel's exhaustion. He was not asking her to work less so he could win. He was asking her to inhabit more of their shared life. The next morning, Maya did not open the expansion memo. She drove to her father's apartment. Victor kept old notebooks in a cabinet beneath the television. As a child, Maya had filled them with diagrams of impossible machines, a refrigerator that told her grandmother which food had expired, a pillbox that spoke 4 languages, a telephone with one button for "I don't understand." Victor handed her a drawing from age 9. It showed a hospital reception desk. On one side stood a doctor surrounded by words. On the other stood Maya's grandmother, with question marks. Between them, a child held a large funnel. "What is the funnel?" Maya asked. "You," Victor said. "You said you would make the hard words small enough to carry home." Maya laughed. Then she stopped. Lumen had not begun with scale in her mind. It had begun with translation, turning systems into choices families could understand, making the hard words small enough to carry home. This leads to Greene's law of aimlessness. Human beings can drift through careers, pleasures, causes, and identities because we lack the fixed instincts that guide other animals. We follow parental expectations, economic pressure, group opinion, or the next opportunity. Later we look around and ask how we arrived. A sense of purpose organizes attention. It tells us which battles are detours. It turns failure into information rather than a verdict. Greene calls us back to primal inclinations, early fascinations, and activities that drew us before reward, prestige, and comparison became dominant. Purpose is not always one job. It is often a recurring form of contribution. Your purpose may change its clothing while keeping the same promise. Greene uses Martin Luther King Jr. as a central historical model. King faced expectations from family, the responsibilities of ministry, doubt, danger, and the enormous pressure of a movement. His purpose deepened through action and crisis. It became more than career preference. It provided a center strong enough to organize sacrifice and guide choices larger than personal comfort. The scale of King's calling was extraordinary. The human mechanism is still relevant in ordinary life. A purpose becomes powerful when it connects individual capacities to a need beyond the self. False purposes imitate the energy, money, attention, pleasure, causes, adopted mainly for belonging, cynicism that protects us from the risk of caring. These can occupy a life without directing it. Maya had used success as a compass, but success only measures progress after a direction is chosen. It cannot choose the direction. At Lumen, she placed 2 documents side by side: Adrian's Global Expansion Plan, Lena's proposal for the Caregiver-Governed Data Trust, and a redesign of Lumen Voice based on the research panel. The expansion offered title, scale, and visible victory. The redesign offered difficult, slower work, aligned with the sentence in the childhood drawing. Make the hard words small enough to carry home. Maya declined the global role. Adrian did not hide his disappointment. You are choosing a trust project over the future of the company. I am choosing what I believe the future has to be built on. Lena already has that portfolio. Maya felt the status wound return. Purpose did not remove envy. It changed which voice received authority. Then I will work for her on it, Maya said. The words cost more than she expected. They also created a quiet freedom. Lena accepted Maya as the lead for Lumen's family understanding redesign, with one condition. I need disagreement, not penance, she said. Do not become agreeable to prove you are no longer envious. This was another kind of balance: care without disappearance, support without submission, purpose without sainthood. That evening, Maya sat beside June at the piano. She did not correct the high note. She asked June why the piece mattered. June said, "It sounds like being scared and going anyway." Maya listened again. For once, she heard more than technique. Maya turned the childhood clue into a ladder. At the top was the broad purpose: make complex care understandable and humane. Below it was a 5-year direction: build systems in which families can understand, question, and control how care information moves. Below that was a 1-year objective: launch the caregiver-governed trust and a voice tool with visible sources. At the bottom was today's work: sit through 3 difficult interviews without defending the current design. Purpose becomes sentimental when it never reaches a calendar. Greene recommends translating the calling into long-term goals, then smaller objectives, and daily practice. He also describes negative spurs. Frustration, exclusion, failure, or anger can reveal what we care enough to change. Resistance can strengthen a purpose if we study it rather than merely complain about it. Maya's missed audition, the clinic suspension, and the North Star backlash were not signs that she had no purpose. They showed where ambition had separated from it. She also listed her false purposes. Attention, the desire to be known as the leader who saved Lumen. Money, valuable, necessary, but unable to choose which compromises were acceptable. Belonging, the wish to remain the person Adrian trusted most. Cynicism, the temptation to call every mission statement branding so that no failure could hurt. False purposes are not always worthless pursuits. The danger comes when they occupy the center and demand that everything else serve them. Maya shared the latter with Daniel. He asked where the marriage appeared. She had not put it anywhere. That omission mattered. A vocational purpose can organize work and still become an excuse for neglect. Maya added another line: build a home where attention is not whatever remains after contribution. No single life mission resolves competing responsibilities. Purpose clarifies the negotiation. It does not eliminate it. The practice for today is the childhood clue sentence. Right. Before I cared about status, I repeatedly loved. Do not search only for a profession. Search for an activity and its emotional pattern. Building, explaining, protecting, performing, organizing, repairing, discovering, making people feel included. Then ask, where does that pattern appear in my life now, and what one choice would give it more authority this week? Purpose is not discovered once like buried treasure. It is recognized, tested, and strengthened through repeated choices. I'm Sarah, and this is Wise Mind Stories. Subscribe and stay with Maya. She has chosen a direction that finally feels like her own. But individual clarity is fragile inside collective fear. At Lumen's emergency retreat, a room full of good people will become more certain, more anxious, and less intelligent together. Maya will have to decide whether purpose is still real when belonging is the price of obeying it. Next episode teaser. Maya has chosen purpose privately. Now she must defend it publicly. The leadership retreat will begin with a number everyone fears and end with a plan nearly everyone supports. The danger will not be one villain. It will be the relief of agreeing together.